Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better life. Know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. Your energy. That's right. Only you can make the change. Share your energy. Shine so bright from darkness to light. Hey, hey, hey. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it won't seem way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The power of God will flow through you from way out.
Welcome. This is Akamazi Kennedy. I'm your host, DJ Genesis. And for those that might have missed it, I did a debate I think a few days ago on Saunders channel. And it was about, do African Americans come from America or do they come from Africa? Now, before I even get into that, I just gotta say that Clarissa Shield whooped that woman's behind, honey. They threw in the towel, and then you had Orlando and Ray J. That was a mess. Tashiki and them, they had a real fight, but man, it's a lot of just a bunch of BS fighting going on. But a real battle actually happened in the debate scene with me and Cosmic Chris. So I'm going to play it on my channel. For those that are interested into it, I'm going to play it. And I hope that you guys get to see the slaughter. Just like they had the fight between Clarissa and the young lady. Honey, we had our own battle royale that happened about 2-3 days ago on Wednesday on HOK. And if anyone wants to come up, I'm gonna just play it. If we want to talk about it, let me know. It's open panel. I'll put the link in the chat. But I'm gonna play it through because I think that people might not have seen it on my side because I was not allowed to broadcast at the time. I was on suspension. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and play this live stream that talks about this subject, and I want to see what y'all think. All right. So without further ado, let's let it rip. You know what I'm saying? Let's let it go ahead and play. Here we go.
They all want the throne, but they can't stand the test. Ooh. To wear the crown, you gotta be the best. The HOK is a tough place to battle. Some can't take it. They even cry, and now they unravel. They line up at the gates, fixed on the throne.
That was so beautiful. You muted, Sonetta. Here we go. Here's Chris.
We got Cosmic Chris 9. I thought he was bailing out on us, man.
Yeah.
Your phone don't work, bro?
No, I sent you a number in the back chat last stream, but I have 2 accounts. I'm pretty sure you guys blocked my Cosmic Chris 9 account a long time ago. One of your moderators blocked it, so I have to be on my other account just to receive the link.
Oh, that's
I never blocked you.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, so I never really said nothing because I got 2 accounts. So.
All right, so Nepal, you got this, right?
I got this, yeah.
All right, we got Cosmic Chris 9 going up against Genesis. And gotta play my song before we get started, y'all. That was just the new song to let the people hear. Now we got to let them hear the new joint too.
Hey, that was beautiful too. So
Oh,
that
you
was
like that? Nepal, take one of them down. Take one down.
Uninterrupted. Are there any questions?
Read the topic, Nepal.
Uninterrupted. Are there any questions?
Read the topic, Nepal.
The top? Oh, I thought you were telling them to. Okay, the topic is, do African Americans descend from Africa? And Genesis says they do. Cosmic says, of course they don't. All right, any questions, debaters? Anybody? Unmute. Genesis, any questions?
no questions here.
I think I have to upload my thing to the online because I'm.
Like I said, I know I have a hard thing to prove. It's very hard to prove and go against the grain that we all don't come from Africa. But I do believe that I have enough information to at least make you think about it. Oh, I yield the rest of my time.
All right, thank you so much. Great opening. All right, moving on to Genesis. When you start speaking, your well, not it's like microfiche, I think.
I don't know exactly how this.
Copies of the census are on there, so.
Oh, let's try to help Genesis get this on, man.
I don't know what she needs to do.
Okay, I think I should be able to present it now. Let me see.
Let's try it.
Are you sharing anything, Cosmic?
If it's just a PowerPoint, you should be able to share it. No.
For even letting us do this.
You.
You know what I'm saying? Giving the underdogs and giving the little people their voice. Shout out to Genesis for even being on here with me. I'm always show respect to my sisters, always, every time. So I appreciate it. Now, I know for a fact I'm the underdog. I know for a fact I have a hard thing to prove right now. Because, the consensus says that we all come from Africa. Most scientists agree with that, this and that. But as researchers, we're supposed to push the limits. We're supposed to find the next big thing. We're supposed to tackle the information. And that's what I came here to do. I think I'm going to make a pretty good case. All I ask is for the people in the audience, the judges. You guys are the judges, the people in the audience, or even the moderators, and anybody who really wants to learn, to have an open book, to keep it righteous in your decision making, and don't be biased. Listen to all the information, her information, my information, and come to the best conclusion that your mind allows you to come to, but keep it righteous. Like I said, I know I have a hard thing to prove. It's very hard to prove and go against the grain that we all don't come from Africa. But I do believe that I have enough information to at least make you think about it. Oh, I yield the rest of my time.
All right, thank you so much. Great opening. All right, moving on to Genesis. When you start speaking, your 2-minute opening begins.
Okay, so I'm here and I'm going to basically be pretty much proving through genetic research and various other means that we in fact do come from Africa, and that it is kind of ridiculous to think otherwise. And that anything of the sort is uncivilized. And I'm just here to just present the evidence, show the proof, break it down from a genealogical and DNA standpoint. And yeah, that's what I plan on doing. Yep.
Okay, great. You sure you're done? You have about a minute left.
Oh, okay. I mean, should I give my opening statement or just the introduction, like saying hello, like what's going on? What we're
You have about a minute. You don't have to take it, but we could just go right into your into the rounds if you're good. I'm just
okay. I just want, man, this is, you know what? I might have to switch to the PowerPoint presentation for some reason.
Now you got only 30 seconds, so you're good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Now let's stop that, reset, and we have Our other opponent, your opponent has stepped away. I see your PowerPoint.
Yeah, for some reason,
Peace.
I don't think that this is the right way.
I say peace to Miss Tiffany with her popcorn. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Let's see. All right, you ready? Peace, everybody. Peace to the chat. Let's get this going. We have
Righty.
Cosmic is back. You ready, Cosmic?
Yes, ma'am. I had to go do something real quick. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. Now, this is your first round. As we said, it's 15 minutes. You can relinquish time. But if at 14 minutes you're still going, I'm going to come in and let you know you have a minute remaining. Your time starts when you start. If you have a PowerPoint, I don't see it.
It should be being shared right now.
Okay, great. And here it is.
All righty. Now, I kind of showed some of this already. Like I said, I have 2 PowerPoints. This one, native species, research gathered by Cosmic Chris 9. So what I like to do is break down what everybody already knows. They claim we're Homo sapiens sapiens. I claim, and have for a while, that we are a native species. Now, Homo sapiens sapien. Homo sapiens sapiens is the name given to our species if, keyword if, we are considered a subspecies of a larger group. This name is used to those or by those that describe the specimen from here to Ethiopia as Homo sapiens, or by those who believe that modern humans and the Neanderthals were members of the same species. The Neanderthals were called Homo sapiens Neanderthals in this scheme. That comes from the Australian Museum. All of my sources will be down here in the form of a hyperlink at any given time, or at the end of this. If you guys have a question on any of my slides, I can copy and paste my hyperlink into the search bar, and I can pull up an article for you guys, or you guys can type out the hyperlink yourself, and it'll take you to exactly where I got my information. Now, a native species, what I believe we are. A native species is found in a certain ecosystem due to natural processes such as natural distribution. The koala, for example, is native to Australia. No human intervention brought a native species to the area or influences spread to that area. Native species are also sometimes called indigenous species. While a native species can be helped by new species introduced to an area like flowers native to North America helped by European honeybees in the last several centuries, the native species itself developed on its own in the area. It is particularly adapted to its habitat. Now, from my research and what I truly firmly believe inside of my heart, we have popped up all over this planet. There's evidence surrounding us that shows that there was human life all over this planet. They come up with a BS excuse that everyone walked out of Africa, but even that in itself shows or comes down to racism, which I will prove later in another slide. But you cannot agree that with the out of Africa theory without agreeing with Charles Darwin and Francis Galton and their racist ideologies. We'll skip this one. This one is, I'll come back to this if need be. What is Gaussian's distribution? It is the normal distribution. A normal distribution, also known as Gaussian's distribution, has a bell-shaped curve, and it is symmetrical around its means. It is used in statistics to model real-world data. The natural distribution is an important distribution in statistics. It fits many natural phenomena. For example, people's heights in a population are approximately normally distributed. The normal distribution is also called Gaussian's distribution after Carl Friedrich Gauss, who first studied it. What is so special about Gaussian's distribution Why do we find Gaussian distribution almost everywhere? Everywhere we need to represent real value random variables whose distribution is not known, we assume the Gaussian form. This behavior is largely owed to the central limit theorem, which involves the study of sum of multiple random variables as per the central limit theorem. Normalize sum of a number of random variables regardless of which distribution they belong to originally converges to Gaussian distribution as the number of terms and the summation increases. Now, if you ask anybody, I'm sure if we even ask Sister Genesis here, how did we get here? How did people get on the planet Earth? Most people say we don't know. They usually will say we don't know. And when we don't know, as you can see here, whenever we need to represent a real valued random variable whose distribution is not known, you have to assume the Gaussian form. So off bat, I'll save my questions for when they're appropriate. But if she cannot answer how human beings populated this planet, then she would have to assume that it's from the natural distribution due to the central limit theorem, what is not a theory. If it was, it would say the central limit theory. It says the central limit theorem. Where do we find the existence of Gaussian distribution? Practitioners or not, almost all of us have heard of this most important form of distribution somewhere or the other. Everywhere we look around us, majority of the processes follow approximate Gaussian form in age, height, IQ, memory, etc. On a lighter note, this is well-known example of Gaussians lurking all around us is the bell curve. During appraisal time, yes, Gaussian distribution resonates with bell curve quite often, and its possibility density function is represented by the following mathematical formula. We will have to actually go to the website because I didn't copy the formula down into my PowerPoint. But this is, like I said, all my sources are at the bottom via hyperlink. Now, when I ask anybody, and any honest and righteous person would give us the same answer. Are humans and nature the same? Are we the same? I would like to ask her that, but like I said, I got to save it for the appropriate time to ask my questions. But I'm sure she would agree, just like Unc agreed when I brought the information to him that we are the same as nature. If anyone says humans are not the same as nature or a part of nature, then we're unnatural, and that's what they really think of you. Now, where do animals come from? Because animals and nature are a part of nature. A native species is found in a certain ecosystem due to natural processes such as natural distribution. The koala, for example, is native to Australia. No human intervention brought a native species to the area or influenced its spread to that area. Native species are also sometimes called indigenous species. This is from the city of Njaro, which is a city website of a city that's inside of California. So this comes straight from a city official website. Are humans and nature the same? The British scientist James Lovelock, working 70 years later, casts these ideas in the largest possible terms. His geohypothesis understands the entire planet, of which humans are a part of, to be a super organism. Humans and nature are fundamentally one and the same. Given our one and the sameness, what happens when we relate to nature as though we were fundamentally separate? The best answer is associated with Arne Naess, one of the great environmental philosophers of the 20th century, whose work gave rise to deep ecology. The answer: humans and nature are so intimately connected that acting as if we are separate and abusing nature is tantamount to abusing ourselves. We need to treat our relationship with nature in a far more sensitive manner. Humansandnature.org. So from the information from this article that you're staring at on your screen, it shows and proves that humans and nature are fundamentally one and the same. If we know the origin story of nature, then you are looking at humans' evolution story. You're looking at the origin story of humans itself, because we are fundamentally one and the same. People who preach the out of Africa theory will like to separate you from nature, separate you from how everything else got on this planet, because somehow we're different. Somehow we're unnatural. Because when nature comes into play, they all came in around the same time. Animals, plant life, all through the same time via the bell curve, which is a mathematical formula. Everyone knows the language of the universe is mathematics. So if we're looking for the answers of how humans got here, how anything got on this planet, you have to look to a mathematician. You have to look and crunch numbers. You look for math. We don't look for someone else's opinion, as in a scientist, a historian, none of that. We look for mathematics and an equation that can help prove how humans and nature got on this planet. 500 million years ago, animals and plant life populated the planet Earth. The animals first occurred in the fossil record around 574 million years ago. Their arrival appears as a sudden explosion in rocks from the Cambrian period, which is 539 million years ago to 485 million years ago, and seems to counter the typically gradual pace of evolutionary change. New Oxford University. New data and analysis shows that plant life began colonizing land 500 million years ago. During the Cambrian period, around the same time as the emergence of the first land animals, these studies are also improving our understanding of how the plant family first evolved. Natural History Museum, which is located in the UK. So both sources come from the UK. And as I previously stated, we have the same origin story as animals and plant life. So if animals and plant life populated the Earth during the Cambrian period, it's a big, huge possibility that so did we. We're not the only species on this planet that had an unnatural, different type of evolution compared to everything else natural. If we came out of Africa, that would be an unnatural origin, and we would be not even closely related to animals and plants, which we all know humans are part of the animal kingdom. And I just showed and proved through Arden Ayaz and James Lovelock that we are fundamentally the same as nature. Could humans survive 500 million years ago? If we had a time machine to travel back to a prehistoric period, the earliest we could survive would be, you guessed it, the Cambrian period, around 541 million years ago. Any earlier than that, there wouldn't have been enough oxygen in the air to breathe. This comes from Science Focus. So they love to say that humans didn't evolve until much later down the line, a couple thousand years ago. They will never bring up millions and say we walked out of Africa. But if there was a time that we could actually survive that's older than that date, according to Science Focus, it would be the Cambrian period. The same time that plants and animals started to populate this great planet that we call home. What is the Cambrian period? The Cambrian period, which lasted from approximately 541 to 485 million years ago, was a pivotal time in Earth's history. It marked the rapid diversification of life forms in the ocean. During this period, many organisms developed hard parts, such as shells and exoskeletons, which contributed to the fossil record we study today. The Cambrian period is often likened to a burst of fireworks with life exploding in forms and colors. Key characteristics of the Cambrian period include the emergence of most major animals, groups, and development of complex ecosystems, and the first appearance of vertebrates.
1 minute. Please don't mute me. I'm trying to tell him 1 minute. 1 minute.
Thank you.
You got a lot of sound effects coming from your speaker, Nicole.
Yeah, but okay, then I'll fix that. Thank you.
Now, when it says the Cambrian period is often like a burst of fireworks for life explodes in forms and colors, that there, if you can correlate and cross-reference, it would be Gaussian's distribution. Because it is Gaussian distribution. I'm gonna show you guys a picture later on. Later on when I get more time, it shows a pocket that starts smaller and then condenses in the middle and gets smaller again, as if there was like an explosion, as if something built up and then exploded. All of the statistical world data that comes out. It's the same thing that would happen during the Cambrian period.
Time.
Humans. Thank you.
No, you want to finish your last sentence? Go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Thank you for that. That was very interesting. And now we're going to move on to Genesis. Genesis,
Okay.
you're sharing your screen?
Yeah, so
go ahead and share it anyway, huh?
I'm sorry, because I have two different
Yeah, but I just want to do this so it won't be anybody thinking there's any bias. You understand?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
All right. So when you start speaking is when your time begins. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and Genesis, when I come in, if you don't use all your 15, I'll come in and you'll know you have 1 minute left. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the first thing I wanted to address is a Gaussian distribution, also called a normal distribution or bell curve, is simply a statistical pattern used to show how measurements cluster around an average. People use bell curves when it comes to mental health and various different things. That's not the only way. Researchers may also use to analyze genetic data, but the distribution itself cannot identify where a population originated. But the question itself is not about whether things exploded and this, that, the other. The thing is, did African Americans descend from Africa? That's the question. And so when we ask that question, it's like, all right, what are we talking about? So the first thing I said, if you talk about it based on a bell curve, survey says you're a liar. But I'm gonna say this is that when we talk about who's the mama and who's the daddy, Maury Purvis is up here and we talk about the 99% of who's the father, So the first thing I want to get into is hold on, because I'm looking at this. Okay. African Americans became a distinct people in America, but our American formation did not erase the predominantly African. Let me just say this. When I said who's the mommy or who's the father, it was based on the information that I had that the mitochondrial Eve is the person whose DNA is really the only thing that you could trace back to Africa that everybody has. Not just Black people, but everybody on this earth has the same mitochondrial DNA from that mitochondrial Eve. But let's go. African ancestry recorded in history, archaeology, language, population, genetics, inherited chromosome segments, and historical human remains. Removing the connection of African Americans on this continent from the Africans on the continent of Africa, as well as our Caribbean brothers and sisters in the diaspora, is a divide and conquer technique and quite possibly a government-led tactic. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so where did people form? Okay, so people will say that, okay, people came from America, they formed their own ethnicity. The resolution is narrower than the worldview. Where did most ancestry come from? According to science, came from Africa. These statements coexist. Now, ethnic population can form in one place from ancestors who came from other places. So when he's talking about this other thing, it's like, what are you talking, when you're talking about this other stuff, like what are you talking about, bro? You know, what are you talking about? Um, it's a lot of mumbo jumbo going on. Okay, so what does descend mean? Descend means to have a person or population in the past that as an origin or ancestral source. Okay, that's the descent. Okay, the word does not mean genetically identical to. A descendant could be culturally new, genetically admixed, and still descend from earlier populations. Merriam-Webster, descend from, to have something or someone or something in the past as an origin or a source. Let's go to the next slide.
You're moving your slides on your own, right?
Yeah. Okay. African descent remains measurable beyond lost DNA segments. Okay, genealogical ancestor means a real person in your family line, whether or not their DNA is still detectable. Genetic ancestor, a genealogical ancestor who left a DNA segment that survives in you. Sorry about that, guys. I had like I don't know, my internet just went down. I don't know what's going on. My internet just went 100% just down, guys. All right, so it's okay. People are trying to like stop the information. I don't know what's going on with that, but honey, my internet just conked all the way out on me. But let's get into it. Let's continue the information. Let's go. All right, let's go. 2024 study. The point is not. Let me go back. Let me start from. I said if you talk about it based on a bell curve, survey says you're a liar. But I'm gonna say this is that when we talk about who's the mama and who's the daddy, you know, Maury Purvis is up here, and we talk about the 99% of who's the father, you know. So the first thing I want to get into is hold on, because I'm looking at this. Okay. African Americans became a distinct people in America, but our American formation did not erase the predominantly African ancestry recorded in history, archaeology, language, population genetics, inherited chromosome segments, and historical human remains. Removing the connection of African Americans on this continent from the Africans on the continent of Africa, as well as our Caribbean brothers and sisters in the diaspora, is a divide and conquer technique and quite possibly a government-led tactic. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so where did people form? Okay, so people will say that, okay, people, I don't know, Kimmy, you do your DNA? Are you sure? The resolution is narrower than the worldview. Where did most ancestry come from? According to science, came from Africa. These statements coexist. Now, ethnic population can form in one place from ancestors who came from other places. So when he's talking about this other thing, it's like, what are you talking? You know, when you're talking about this other stuff, like, what are you talking about, bro? You know, what are you talking about? It's a lot of mumbo jumbo going on. Okay, so what does descend mean? Descend means to have a person or population in the past that as an origin or ancestral source. Okay, that's the descent. Okay, the word does not mean genetically identical to. A descendant could be culturally new, genetically admixed, and still descend from earlier populations. Merriam-Webster, descend from, to have something or someone or something in the past as an origin or a source. Let's go to the next slide.
You're moving your slides on your own, right?
Yeah. Okay. African descent remains measurable beyond lost DNA segments. Okay, genealogical ancestor means a real person in your family line, whether or not their DNA is still detectable. Genetic ancestor, a genealogical ancestor who left a DNA segment that survives in you. So even if we are somehow able to connect and say we came from flowers and all this other stuff, you know, we also, based on the science, can also say that we also came from Africa, descended from Africa. 314 African versus 51 European genealogical ancestors. The study of the study's African American model, and that is the Agronot Tamir et al. Genetics 2264, and that's the link right there to see it. Okay, all right. So African ancestors remain the clear majority in both measures, and that's Agronot Tamir et al. 2024 study. The point is not that ancestry disappears. Some individual segments disappear through recombination, while the population-wide pattern remains predominantly African, about 79% African in the model. Okay, and so I want to actually show the study. If you could bring up, it was another. This is another page. You said you want to be able to bring it up, the power. I just want to show, because he said that you have to have mathematical study. So I'm going to remove this and show that this was all based on a genetic study, and in that study it said, okay, time the time to the most recent common ancestor to compare the timing of genetic connections between African populations and individuals from Americas with historical records of the transatlantic shipping of enslaved Africans. We estimated the age of IBD segments using.
Yo, Nepal.
Yeah.
You have a lot of noise coming from your mic.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I said I paused her time. Why are you screaming like that?
You have a lot of noise coming from there.
Well, I'm going to have to fix the mic, but.
They are trying not to let me do this show. What is going on? I'm getting blocked, y'all. I'm getting stopped. All right, let's see. It's a. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? I don't know what's going on. I mean, my whole internet just went down. It's crazy. That is crazy. It's the second time the internet just went down on what I'm doing. I'm gonna have to like come back, and that is wild. Like let's look, it's rotating. See this? Whole debate is whether or not we descended from Africa. All right. So so the question: does a new American genetic profile erase African descent? The exact modern day African American profile is not found unchanged in Africa. Admixture creates a new combination. It does not erase the source population. And that is what that genetic study showed. All right. Are we going to pretend that the slave trade didn't exist? I mean, a lot of time people are saying that we delineated and stuff like that because we want to pretend like we didn't have the slave trade, but we did have it. It existed. And the Atlantic slave trade was tied to a commercial system involving enslaved Africans, Caribbean, sugar and molasses, and New England rum. Merchants carried rum to Africa, exchanged it for enslaved people, transported those captives to the Americas, and obtained molasses produced through enslaved labor. The molasses was then used to manufacture more rum, allowing the profitable cycle to continue. So even if we might have came from the flowers and we emerged from America, there is still evidence that there was a slave trade where Africans were brought over here. So I'm not sure which Americans he's talking about that originated solely from America. But according to the studies that I've looked at, it says that we actually originated from Africa through the transatlantic slave trade. And this is talking about that same exact study right here. And within that study, it says previous genetic studies focusing on people of African descent across Americas found that most African Americans in the United States have more African ancestry from populations that live near present day Nigeria. So even if we might have came, I don't know, how did that happen? What happened? So are you trying to say that instead of out of Africa, we came out of America? Well, we need to have some more information about that, because if you actually do the research, I can actually show you real people that actually existed actually up until a certain time frame. This guy, his name is Charlie Smith of Polk County, Texas. He's last known last known living slave brought to America, born in Liberia about 1842. He was kidnapped. African Americans developed a distinct ethnic and cultural population in the Americas, but historical records, genome-wide DNA, and African regional genetic affinity show that the population's predominant ancestry came from Africa during the Atlantic slave trade era. Merchants traded the rum for captive African people, forcing them onto horrifying Middle Passage voyage back to the Americas to do slave labor in the sugar fields. And I do have the that came from Wikipedia, but the actual footnotes are actually in the slide. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, hold on. All right. So what's the next slide? So the next I'm not sure if I should like get into this portion of the thing, but how much more time do I have left? Now I'd like to say that I normally do this thing on Canva, but I did it in PowerPoint, so I didn't really have a control. I didn't really know how to control the PowerPoint the way I really wanted to, but honey, I really had some cool stuff in my PowerPoint, but it's okay. How much more time do I have left? I don't even know. Okay, never mind. But I guess I'll continue. All right. Colonial Africa communities and burials. All right. So not only do we actually have proof of the slave trade, but we also have actual communities that Africans
I'm fixing to cover that too.
I'm fixing to cover that. What you talking about? Begun under the Dutch rule. Documented Africans arrived in 1620s under the Dutch West India Company. Their forced labor helped build roads, farms, fortifications, and the colonial economy. In 1644, 11 men and their wives received conditional half-freedom land grants, helped form a geographically distinct Black settlement north of New Amsterdam. And what actually happened is, if you go further, let me go into the slide, is you'll actually find that there's an actual African slave graveyard in New York that's called the African what's the name of it? African burial site. It's called the African burial. I'm kind of like, I give me a second because I'm like, if we're not from Africa, why would they consider the origins of the New York African community? So the actual it's called the Half Freedom and the Land of the Blacks. In 1644, 11 enslaved men successfully petitioned the Dutch authorities for their freedom. They were granted a status known as half freedom. All right. So these were the first geographically distinct Black community. This is this community in New York, and they actually built the actual African graveyard in New York. Let's go to the next one. The community developed before the colony became New York. All right. Now these were Africans. They were not considered Indians or a Native American or anything like that. In the 1620s, they're the first documented Africans. Dutch West India, half freedom and farm, 1644. English takeover, separate burial spaces, okay? Free and enslaved Africans used the burial ground outside of the city's settled boundary, okay? After that, the burial grounds it still belongs to this day to the same developing African community. Africans lived, worked, formed families, worshiped, and under Dutch rule, some held farms north of the settlement. When Africans were excluded from established burial spaces, free and enslaved members of the community buried their dead outside of the county city boundaries in the area now preserved as the African burial ground. So if Africans did not descend, if African Americans did not descend from Africans, then why are we naming things the African burial ground? Why do we have African communities that we can actually point to in history that existed in New York? The cemetery is a physical evidence of an identifiable African descended population in colonial New York, not merely a modern label placed on anonymous graves. The earliest sites, this is not the only grave site that people had that were African communities. In the mid 1630s, the National Park Service identified a 6-acre burial ground containing the remains of enslaved and free Africans who lived and worked in colonial New York. Upward of 15,000 burials. So you're going to say that 15,000 people, they probably have 15,000 offspring, that these people were not African? That they didn't have any descendants from Africa, when clearly this community was an African community, at least that's what they considered themselves to be. And this comes from the National Park Service, African Burial Ground, History and Culture. And I can actually show you the information that actually is coming up next, where it actually talks about right now what's happening with that particular burial ground is Trump and all this stuff is the Trump administration is currently, because you're saying that anything that's talking against this thing that this is against, but the Trump administration is intentionally erasing Black history told by public lands and waters. And public lands and waters is the very thing that keeps the history intact for the African and African American people. Another example of the African burial ground, okay? New York honors an estimated 15,000 enslaved and free Africans buried there the 17th and 18th centuries and details how Black labor built America's first cities. Okay? And then, all right, so 27, DNA from historical African Americans. People buried at Furnace, Maryland, all but one of the Catoctin individuals have primarily African ancestry. The genomes also show variant European ancestry and African affinities, including West and West Central Africa. These were human remains, not modern customer identities entered into an app. If you want to say it's about 23andMe and all those other
stuff. Thank you, Genesis. All right, moving on to Cosmic, to the second round. Cosmic, when you're ready.
All righty. Beautiful round, sister. Beautiful. I like the information. I like.
You want to share your screen when you?
Yeah, I will let you know. I just want to touch on a couple of things she said. She's talked about
you're gonna do that in your round, or you can wait till your rebuttal.
I would do it during my round, and I'll touch on more during the rebuttal.
Okay, so let's let you can rebut in your 15 minutes, and when you start talking, your 15 minutes starts.
All righty. She showed and made a statement about the distribution of Africans, but then she showed a mathematical formula that talked about something else. My whole thing in my slide presented was about a mathematical formula equation that can show the distribution of humans. I showed you through cross references that normal distribution is the reason why plants and animals got here. When plants and animals got here, they're not just in Africa. They're all over. And that's due to the Gaussian distribution, or what we call normal distribution. I would like her to show me a mathematical equation that shows how the distribution of humans. Because if plants and animals got all over the globe from normal distribution, you got to show me a distribution equation mathematically of how humans only got distributed in Africa. She said something about the slave African grave sites. First of all, they can call a slave African grave site or graveyard anything they want because they lie. And I'm going to prove to you through my next PowerPoint that they lie, and they lie to your face, and we run with the lies. But they can name anything that they decide to name it, because that's what they decided to do, whether it's a lie or not. She said, why are there so many things named after Africans? That's fine. Central Park wasn't. Central Park in New York was named after Seneca Village. Seneca was a name of a group of Native Americans, not Africans. She forgot, or she left that out for some reason, that they also named things after the indigenous people, and the people that lived there, it was a Black community. They could have named it Ethiopia Village. They could have named it Slave Village, but they didn't. They named it Seneca Village for a reason. Now I'm going to get into a couple things. I want to share a couple screens. I'm going to do it real fast because I know my time's kind of limited. So first thing I'm going to share is this, because she talked about that. I would never deny that they brought Africans over. My screen is being shared right now. I would never deny that they brought Africans over. It's just how many did they bring over here? How many got to where we're talking about? And how many went somewhere else? Now, this is from PBS. Literally, this is from pbs.org. If you can see right here where my cursor is, I'll try to highlight it. And how many of these 10.7 million Africans were shipped directly to North America? Only about 388,000. That's right, a tiny percentage. even the white man and PBS acknowledges that they only brought a tiny percentage of Africans over here. They brought about 10.7 million made it over here because, you know, you can't keep Africans bunched up on a boat like this and some of them's not going to die. They brought about 12 million. Only 10.7 million made it, and only 388,000 made it to what we call North America. So I'm gonna stop sharing that one. And now she also talked about how we all like really came out of Africa. We all descend from Africa. Well, guess what? There's a group of people who never been in Africa, but their DNA is prevalent in African Americans and Europeans and everyone else. You know what they're called? The Neanderthal. Now, if
he fixing to get into the Neanderthal, but before we go into that, let me be clear that the African burial ground is not in Seneca Village. Those are two different places. Seneca Village and the African burial ground is not in the same place. So these are two different places, but I don't know why he even brought that up. You understand? Why did he bring that up? He don't know what he's talking about. Anyways, back to the regularly scheduled, but yeah, there we go.
was here, he would try to give you some BS run around story about how the Neanderthals weren't fully human and this and that. So now I'm going to share my screen. It's a video we're going to watch. This, I want you guys to let me know if you can hear the video because they break down how Neanderthals are humans. Just because they lie,
I don't even know why this is relevant, but he's gonna play this stupid ass
like
video that have nothing to do with nothing.
Had funerals and everything. Sounds human to me. But I'm going to play this video. It's a short video. Let's see. I'm sharing my screen right now. Anyone can search this video up.
Can you hear me?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Now I pause your time. You're at 4 minutes.
I don't understand why he's bringing up the Neanderthal, but
it's in 13 seconds. Is this a video that you downloaded, or are you just going to the YouTube channel?
It's just on YouTube.
Yeah, I gotta see if Sonetter wants us to do that or not. So he's backstage. I don't know if I can do it. If he's okay with that, Sonetter, are you?
Homo erectus. This is where you start getting to the humans. Here's a picture of Homo erectus. And I like this, How Man Began from Time Magazine. I don't know why Time Magazine has such a vestige interest in promoting evolution, but a lot of good covers. And Homo erectus is presented in the textbook as, kind of like one of the first Homo sapiens, so leading right up to the first Homo sapiens. But if you look at Homo erectus, there's the skeleton, completely human. Has some distinct features, just like all of us have distinct features, especially among different people groups when you separate the gene pool, like after the Tower of Babel, but completely human. The skull size of Homo erectus fits within the normal genetic variation of humans, around 1,000 cubic centimeters. So Homo erectus is just 100% human. And that leads us to the Homo sapiens. Our direct ancestors, according to the theory of evolution, which is Neanderthal man, Cro-Magnon man, a few others too. We're just going to talk about Neanderthals real quick because they're just so popular. Neanderthals, that's what the Geico caveman's supposed to be, in case you didn't know. So,
if you can see that, he showed how the brain size is so similar to humans. He showed how the body structure is so similar to humans. And this is what a Neanderthal literally would look like in our time. There is some Native Americans who look like.
What the hell is he talking about? What does this have to do with Americans, whether they came from Africa or came from America or not?
Like this, who have big heads and unibrows and I actually have a unibrow that I have to shave all the time. No lie. So the Neanderthal DNA is prevalent, and they never stepped foot in Africa. But I'm gonna continue to let the video play.
Being a Neanderthal, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of ironic, I think, that the way they present Neanderthal in the commercials, intelligent, smart, probably more like what they really were like, which is kind of intriguing to me. But they were first found in Germany in 1856, constructed look ape-like, even though their brain capacity is bigger than ours. They had big brains, which is usually a big deal. First pictures of Neanderthals looked something like this. Basically a big old gorilla standing upright. And as we find more fossils that correctly interpret them, we said, no, they look more kind of like this, brutish, more like a man, but still very much an ape man, because they're rearranging the data. An example of this would be here. Dr. Jack Kuzo, who has a great book called Buried Alive about the Neanderthals. You should check it out. He actually
I have no idea why he's bringing up the Neanderthals. I don't know why.
Which is a rare opportunity. Dennis got to study them really neat. He looked at me, he noticed quite a few things. First of all, he got this drawing of Neanderthal from the Museum of Berlin. And he noticed, he's a dentist, he knows these things, that they took the jawbone and they moved it up over an inch out of place to give it the idea of a protruding jaw to make the Neanderthal look more ape-like. When you put the jaw in its right spot, you see very much a flat face, like.
Now, he just explained to you, Dr. Jack Kuzo, it showed through his research how they lie. The government, if you think the government and the scientists aren't lying to you, you have another thing to work on. You cannot trust everything that you see. Learn that as a kid. He's showing you how they lied and tried to manipulate the skulls to make them seem less human. But when you put the jawbone in its correct place, it shows a flat human appearance shaped skull.
What the hell difference does that have to do
give
with?
A little bit ahead.
No.
He breaks down how they actually had funerals. They used jewelry, used musical instruments, developed complex tools. They did cave paintings. They had a capability of complex speech.
Neanderthals were in Europe, not in America. Why are we bringing this up? The conversation, the actual subject is, did African Americans descend from America or Africa? Not did Neanderthals exist? Like, what are we talking about?
Their own language, and they buried their dead. That sounds human to me. That sounds like everything
listen,
that makes us
unless human. You can tell me that
right
Neanderthals are where the original American Black African Americans come from. I don't understand what the point of this even bringing this up is. But let's keep going.
In 2026 and before and beyond. So if we accept them as being another form of species, they never stepped foot in Africa. They were a native species to around Eurasia, European and Asia area. They never been into Africa. They went into Homo sapiens, walked out of Africa, and then made it with them. So if
do you see my face? Am I like? I wish I could zoom in on my face. Like, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this has nothing to do with the subject. Neanderthals came from, who gives a shit? Did an African American descend from Africa or what? You're talking about Neanderthals.
Either you're saying that we were slow, we were just hormonal and kinky weirdos that walked out of Africa and decided to have sex with a non-human that looks like an ape, then that's another story for another time. I don't believe that. I think we were an intelligent species who ran into another intelligent species, and they decided to mate the same way that we do nowadays with interracial marriages and or interracial relationships. Now, to get to my PowerPoint, share my screen one more time. Sorry, I'm just trying to work with the time that I have. Okay, we're up. Start from the beginning.
The hell are you talking about?
Proof African Americans do not descend from Africa. Research gathered by Cosmic Chris 9. Now, this is another proof because we just heard Dr. Jack Kuzo example of how they lied and manipulated science in the form of messing with their skulls to make them look less human. Well, this is something else the government and scientists lied about. The maps. I'm sure we can all come to a conclusion and agree that Africa on the map is way smaller than it should be. Africa should be depicted way bigger on the maps, but they intentionally lied. The African Union is championing a drive to replace the 16th century Mercator world map, arguing it's widespread use by governments and international bodies and accurately depicts Africa's true scale. The projection devised from choreographer, I can't say his first name, Gerardus Mercator, for navigation distorts continent size, inflating areas around the poles like North America, Greenland, while shrinking Africa, South America. Salam Hebdadi, the deputy chairman of the the AU Commission said the map impact is significant. It might seem to be just a map, but in reality, it is not. She argued that the Mercator fosters a false impression of Africa as marginal, despite it being the world's second largest continent with 54 nations and over 1 billion people. This comes from the Independent out of the UK, which shows another example of how the government and scientists are lying to you. So why wouldn't they lie about, if they would lie about something so small as a map, why wouldn't they lie about the human origins? Other notable lies from the Dawes Rolls, $5 Indians. We all know and came to the conclusion that they let people sign their names on the Dawes Rolls for $5 to label themselves an Indian. This one's controversial. COVID-19, I believe, it started in China. They want to say otherwise, the government and scientists. Alien existence. I believe aliens exist. A lot of people do. A lot of the government and scientists are throwing it under the bus and trying to lie about it. Eugenics. Back in the day, they said eugenics was real science. Now they call it racist science. They lie about a number of things. So it's up to you if you decide to believe these lies. Alex Haley, author of Roots lawsuit. Now, a lot of people didn't know really too much about slavery, which she loves to talk about, which I will never deny happened. But even the people who depict it and write it in their books and make TV shows are lying about it. Alex Haley settled a lawsuit yesterday by acknowledging that the world-renowned book's Roots contains some material from a relatively unknown novel about slavery that was published 9 years earlier. The settlement...
Who gives a shit? That's not the question, whether or not Alex Haley had a book called Roots or whether Roots was real or not. Did we come from America or did we descend from Africa?
Ended the 6-week trial of a suit by Harold Cortlander, a 70-year-old author from Bethesda, who contended that there was substantial similarities between Roots and his own earlier novel, The African. The novel was called The African. He sued in a federal district court in Manhattan for more than half the profits of Roots. As the trial was about to reach climax with summations by the opposing lawyers, they issued the following statement. The suit has been amicably settled out of court. Alex Haley acknowledges and regrets the material from The African by Harold Cortlander found their way into his book. So even the author who wrote about the most famous show and book about slavery lied to you. That comes from the New York Times. Alex Haley, author, admits Roots is fiction. There are some very big jobs at hand for Black America. And looking back at centuries past, it is a costly distraction from the work that needs to be done here and now. Moreover, the past that people are looking back at in Roots is not a wholly real past. When challenged by professional historians, Alex Haley called his work fiction. Part fact or faction. Sorry about that. Part fact and part fiction. He said that he had tried to give his people some myths to live by. Alex Haley's own words. Myths
1 minute.
to live by. It was not the Roots merely got some details wrong. It presented some critically false pictures of what had actually happened. False pictures that continue to dominate thinking today. Comes from the Capitalism magazine. False pictures that continue to dominate thinking today. And when false images can brainwash someone, not saying our sister Genesis is brainwashed, but she's misled by false pictures that dominate her thinking. Just like most of the out of Africa people. The same liar, Alex Haley, who admitted to lying in his books and his TV show and lost a lawsuit for it, started a foundation that helps with DNA testing and genealogy. We cannot, and this comes from Alex Haley Foundation, his website for his foundation that he started called the Kuta Kinte Alex Haley Foundation. You cannot trust. Sorry.
Go ahead, finish. No, finish your sentence.
You cannot always trust DNA testing when there's liars like Alex Haley controlling the DNA or the training or the methods of how you get to your DNA research.
Thank you.
Alex Haley is not controlling DNA research. This shit is just Insanity, bro. Alex Haley is controlling DNA. Fuck is he talking about? Like, bro. Let's go.
Okay, thank you, Cosmic Chris. You guys can hear me okay now? Senator said I was having some mic issues. Can you hear me okay now?
Oh, what was that my whole time?
Oh yeah, your time's done. You're at 15. Okay. Yeah, you did. Okay. You did your time. So we're gonna take, if you could stop sharing. Genesis, you guys can hear me fine, right? Cosmic and Genesis.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I can hear you. So I have a question. Like, how many more rounds? We got 3 rounds or 2?
This is your second round. You have, after this, you'll have 1 more round. This is your second round.
Okay. So I just want to know how I got to pace myself because it's, all right. Okay.
Okay. Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share that?
Yeah.
All right. When you start talking, your 15 minutes begin. And when I come in at 4 and tell you have 1 more minute, you'll be at 14, of course. All right. Go ahead.
All right. So in this thing, we're going to go into the African native encounters. We're going to even go in this deeper into colonialism and slavery. So let's first get into, all right. Another important fact, Spaniards, okay? Of that time, this is from the Strategies for Africans in America, 13 Steps to Freedom, written by Anthony T. Browder. Another important fact, Spaniards of that time were much mixed with Negroes and had been from before the Moorish invasion of 711 AD. Simon Bolivar reminded Spanish Spanish Americans of his time that they were not pure Europeans to begin with. Spain itself, he said, had ceased to be European by its African blood. Its institutions and character, Napoleon or someone before him had rightly said Africa begins at the Pyrenees. In short, the United States was not founded by a pure Nordic race. So in this, I say even the so-called Europeans that so-called founded the United States were of African descent. So let's continue on. All right. In the book by J.A. Rogers, Africans, A Gift to America, we go into, this thing. People talk about that they are, they might be got Indian in my blood. You know what I'm saying? I got that Indian in my blood, But here's the thing about that, if you look into it, right? So when Columbus and the first Spaniards came, it was inevitable that Africans should be with them. But since there was no intention, then of using them on a vast scale, only a few were brought, right? The use of Negro came when actually the Indian labor soon proved unsatisfactory. So the actual people that were here from Asia, the Indian people that had came across the Bering Strait, they initially tried to use them as slaves, and they didn't suffice. So what did they have to do? They had to go to Africa and bring over slaves from Africa. Okay, and what happened is that. Hold on, before I even go into that, do you know that the Indians were a matrilineal group? And that the men didn't do any work. The women did all the work. The men didn't work. The females did. So when they tried to put these suckers to work, honey, they died. Because they weren't used to working. Let's go. Herrera tells of their great vitality, and compared with the Indian, they flourished in the Spanish Isles as well. He says that they were thought to be nearly immortal, as for some time no one had seen one die except for by hanging, like oranges. They seem to have found their natural soil, The labor of the Africans now became the most important single factor in the development of the New World. On them fell the crude work, and more than a little of the skilled one. Some had brought with them the ancient skills in metals, weaving, carving, agriculture, and we are the main one that say we built this country. But if you say that you came from anything like a Neanderthal or whatever he's talking about, then you're saying that you don't even come from these people that they say were so you're saying you came from the ones that passed on. They couldn't even stay alive. If you say you got that Neanderthal blood, honey, they couldn't even, they was dying trying to do slave work. They was dying. So I don't know what that's about. Talking about some Neanderthal. What are we talking about here? We gonna connect ourselves to the Neanderthal in some way? What is that about? African native contact in the South was post-Columbian. All right, let's get into it. Enslaved and free Africans were present in Spanish Florida decades before 1619. There was meant to say pre-Columbian. Sorry. Their presence was early, but it followed European contact and the opening of Atlantic colonial routes. Africans encountered native peoples through Spanish mission and settlements, warfare, trade, escape, refuge, alliance, adoption, and family formation. Before 1619, before 1492, early Africans' presence still connects to Africa and the Atlantic colonial world. Sorry. Native nations did not have one relationship to African slavery. The native people, the people, these Neanderthals he's talking about that came over the Bering Strait, okay, they either enslaved, they were refuge in an alliance, they had kinship and community. So either they were wealthy citizens and leaders of the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Muskogee, Creek, and Seminole nations and people of African descent, or they were a refuge. Okay, other native towns and leaders sheltered fugitives, traded with Maroons, fought beside them, or accepted them into local political networks. Okay, kinship, intermarriage, adoption, shared military struggle, and long residence created families and communities that were genuinely both African and native. I think that the biggest thing is that we think we're trying to talk about like the Neanderthal and all this other stuff, but I'm trying to say is that we are saying that the debate is, did we descend from Africa? I'm saying that yes, we did. and everything is showing that information, showing that. I'm not saying that 100%, but we do have a descendant. So here's the thing, is that, again, I told you what descending means from, right? So let's get into the Seminole record. You got to excuse me because I got to get close to the screen to see it. So the Seminole Indians lived in Florida swamplands and welcomed escaped slaves. The escaped slaves, called Maroons, combined African traditions with Native American lifeways. They joined Seminole Confederation in 1812, but by 1841, almost all Seminoles had been forced to move to Indian territory in Oklahoma. In 1845, treaty required the Creek Nation to share the land with the Seminoles, but the slave-holding Creeks proclaimed that no enclaves of free blacks or Seminole Maroons would be allowed to live in the Creek Nation or bear arms. So here's the thing. Now, if these are our people, why would they give us that caveat? So the source says the Seminole Indians welcomed escaped slaves who were called Maroons. It explicitly says Maroons combine African traditions with Native American lifestyles. Okay, combining traditions, documents, contact between distinguishable histories, not a single origin of population. So if you say that you are from and the Neanderthals and all this other crazy stuff, that we're all one or whatever we're trying to say about that, then that's wrong. That's BS. Okay, and then let's break it down into like the tribes and how people function, how freedmen's functioned, differed by nation. Okay, the Cherokee freedmen, okay, formerly enslaved people and descendants connected to the Cherokee Nation. Post-war treaty citizenship became a long-running legal issue. Muskogee, Creek freedmen, African descended people formerly enslaved within the Creek Nation and their descendants. Community and citizenship's history continues. Okay, Choctaw and Chickasaw freedom, formerly enslaved African Americans and descendants, recorded separately in Dawes era roles. Seminole freedmen, African descendants, bands with particular deep history of alliance, kinship, military cooperation, and political incorporation. Freedmen identifies a history and legal category. It does not automatically mean native by blood, nor does it cancel tribal citizenship. Okay, and that's from the National Archives, Dawes rolls, and 5 tribes classifications. That's that actual that's where that information comes from. And while we're at it, let's bring up the Dawes rolls while we're having that discussion. All right. So what happened is that if you probably can't see it because it's not big enough, but what it's actually saying is what the part that I highlighted in that particular in the Dawes rolls. Hold on. Can I show this? Can I share this tab instead of like what I was sharing?
Yeah, you want to take this down?
Yeah, I want to just take that down for a second and add this to the stage.
Okay, your time is paused. And so stop sharing that, and you want to add this one with that's. Wait, let me get it. This one right here.
No, it's sharing. I just shared this the browser tab and it works. Okay.
Okay.
All right, here we go. The Dawes Commission on the 5 Civilized Tribe, okay, at Act of Congress on March 3rd, 1893, established a commission and negotiated agreements with the Choctaw Creek, Chickasaw, Seminole, and Cherokee Indian tribes. The commission became known as the Dawes Commission after its chairman, Senator Harry Dawes of Massachusetts. The commission intended to divide tribal land into the plots. They were then distributed among the members of the tribe, right? So then applicants were categorized as citizens by blood, citizens by marriage, minor citizens by blood, newborn citizens by blood, freedmen, African Americans formerly enslaved by tribal members, newborn freedmen, and minor freedmen. So if we're all one, why is there a separation between African Americans and those people? Because African American was separate from the actual tribe, the actual tribe. They were either, you know what I'm saying? They had that separation. It was a very clear delineation. The commission reviewed prior tribal roles, family and household census card, parents' names, testimony, affidavits, residences, marriages, correspondence, and whether a tribal government had previously recognized the applicant. How could they distinguish the applicant? Okay. Why does the distinction, what does this distinction mean? Freedmen recorded descendants from people enslaved by tribal citizens and a separate legal enrollment route. Minor and newborn identified age or later birth within the same category. If freedmen automatically meant native by blood, why did the same role separately record citizens and children by blood? And that's according to the National Archives Dawes records category, census card, and application. So that's that information. Just wanted to bring that up right there. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me just get back on where I was at. All right. Hold on. Let me can you bring that other one back up again? Okay. You just had the PowerPoint up. You can bring, there we go. All right, so let's go to the next slide. All right. So how the records distinguish Africans from indigenous Americans. The sources name 2 populations, even while documenting alliance, intermarriage, and shared communities. How they could tell in 1800s. Place of origin and migration history. Enslaved, free, fugitive, or emancipated legal status, name, nation, town, band, or community affiliation, parents, marriage, baptism, census record. They had baptism and census rolls. I was going to show you some of the but they're not even in English because a lot of this stuff was happening in Florida, and it was from the Catholic Church and was written in Spanish, so it wouldn't make any sense for me to show that because you couldn't even read it. But like I actually saw the actual marriage certificates, languages, names, cultural traditions, and military records, self-identification and recognition by the community. All right, so the key point is combined African traditions with Native American lifeways describes cultural blending between identifiable people, not proof that African indigenous Americans were originally from the same population. So bottom line is that there was clearly an African population because they had a admixture and a combining of both cultures. All right, and then there's actually people that are prominent, that are historical in this whole thing. Prominent people that make a shared history concrete. All right, Abraham, a Black Seminole leader and interpreter, helped negotiate between Seminoles and Black Seminoles. Why was there if we're all one and the Neanderthal is a part of the and we're part Neanderthal and we're just all whatever he's trying to say about that whole thing, because I don't even know what are we, I don't even know what the Neanderthal, I don't know what the Neanderthal discussion was really about. Okay. But if Black Seminole, why is there separation between, because a lot of times we probably say, well, we were native and this, that, the other. Well, why is there a distinction between Seminoles and Black Seminoles? Okay, John Horse, Black Seminole leader who resisted re-enslavement and helped lead migration from Indian territory to Mexico. It's crazy they're saying Indian. We're not in India, but it's crazy. All right. Pompey Factor, born to Black Seminole father and Black's mother, Medal of Honor recipient and Seminole Negro Indian Scout. So why would they separate Seminole from and then Negro? If that's like, if it's all one, you're Seminole, then why is it Seminole Negro? Seminole this? Because there was a clear separation between the native Seminoles and the Negro freedmen Seminoles that were a part of their community. Black Seminole, Adam Payne and Isaac Payne, Black Seminole Scouts and Medal of Honor recipients whose family belonged to the Texas, Mexico Black Seminole community. Cal Tom, a Muskogee Creek interpreter and Black leader whose Civil War service and diplomacy shaped Creek freedmen history. So there was definitely a a separation between the native people and the actual Black African natives that actually were coming together with these Native American tribes. So I just want to make that clear. Okay. Okay, let me see. All right, so the most prominent community have specific names: Black Seminoles, Cherokee Freedmen, Choctaw, Chickasaw Freedmen, yep, Seminole Freedmen. So all these, okay, so the Maroons and African descendants allied with and incorporated into Seminole and political life, okay? Cherokee, formerly enslaved people and descendants tied to Cherokee communities and treaty citizenship. Distinct national history. See, Choctaw, Creek Foundation, all these people had a specific group of African descendant people that connected with those tribes of people. So I'm just trying to show that there was a separation between the native people and the actual freedmen and the African people that joined. So there are people that descendants of those people that might say, okay, yeah, I'm part freedman, I'm part Choctaw, I'm part this. Well, we have to find out. So that if you say that we didn't descend from Africa, well, then you have to also prove what part. Are you a mixture of a person that was a part of this tribe, or were you original?
All right, thank you, Genesis. Your time, both of you have completed your second round. We're going into your third and final round. Cosmic, go ahead and share what you need to share. You have 15 minutes. I will come in and let you know when you have a minute remaining.
All righty, thank you. I didn't know we had 3 rounds. Perfect, that's perfect. I did not use my second round's time to my full advantage, so I can admit that my video took up most of my time. The sister's making the beautiful arguments, but honestly, she's making it real easy for me.
We're gonna start your time.
Yep, that's fine. That's fine.
Tell me, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, your time starts now.
Thank you. I can't ask the questions yet, so I always save my questions. Just want to address a couple things she said during my time. Question. They gave us the caveat that you spoke of, right? The rules that she gave, that they gave the Blacks, that she tried to distinguish them, say that they're different people. Of course, because there's, just like in Africa, there's different tribes, just like there's different tribes in Native Americans. If black people in Philly decided to enslave Black people in New York, they would give them rules too. That's why. Because just because we're all come from the same source, that doesn't mean anything when you're your own group of people. You have your own customs, your own culture. Just like they have their own culture in Philadelphia, they got their own in New York. So that's why they gave them rules, because it's the same thing we would do today. Also, you said that there was an admixture, and why would they distinguish difference and all that? You kind of cut yourself with that, because if Black Indians and Black Africans mix, then that shows that there was Black natives who were not African. They weren't the same because they had an admixture. That's the whole point. But let me get right into my PowerPoint, because I did not use my time wisely last time. Which one is this? This one right here. My screen's being shared.
The natives were not black, they were Asian. That was the story, at least I heard growing up.
Now I want you to get ready for this, because this is where when we get our questions, I'm going to ask you a question on this for sure. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to see your answer to this. The Racial Integrity Act. Racial integrity laws were passed by the General Assembly to protect whiteness against what many Virginians perceive to be the negative effect of race mixing, that admixture you were talking about. They included the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, which prohibited interracial marriage and defined as white a person who has no traits whatsoever.
Why would they need to have a Racial Integrity Act for two black appearing people
of any blood other than Caucasian? The Public Act of 1926, which required all public meeting spaces to be strictly segregated, and a third act passed in 1930 that defined as black a person who has even a trace of African American ancestry. This way of defining whiteness as a kind of purity and bloodline became known as the one-drop rule. These laws arrived at the time when a pseudoscience of white superiority called eugenics gained support by groups like the Anglo-Saxons Club of America, which argued that the mixing of whites, African Americans, and Virginia Indians could cause great social harm, despite the fact that races have been intermixed since European settlement, since they came over here. The Racial Integrity Act, from his position as the state registrar of vital statistics, Walter A. Plecker micromanaged the racial classifications of Virginians, driven by the concern that blacks were attempting to pass as white. Virginia Indians were particularly incised by the law, and by Plecker in particular, because the state seemed intent on removing any legal recognition of Indian identity in favor of the broader term colored. We all know who the colored people were. If you don't know, I'm going to show you on my next slide. After one failed try, lawmakers largely achieved this goal in 1930, drawing negative reaction from the black press. The Racial Integrity Act remained on the books until 1967, when the U.S. Supreme Court in Loving versus Virginia found it prohibition of interracial marriage to be unconstitutional. In 2001, the General Assembly denounced the act and eugenics as racist. Don't forget, Charles Darwin came out with the theory you're preaching that we all came out of Africa. He is the cousin of the person who created eugenics. They're blood cousins. So you're running away with racist white people's ideology and holding us to their standard. I would never be held to the standard of a racist or his family. This comes from the Encyclopedia of Virginia. Who are colored people? One more time, let's go back. In case y'all didn't hear me in the back. I can't highlight it because it's already been presented. But in the middle of the paragraph, it says, any legal recognition of Indian identity in favor of the broader category colored, not African identity. It said Indian identity in favor of the broader category colored. Now, who are the colored people? Who was drinking out of colored water fountains? Who was sitting at catching colored only transportation? You can see right here on your screen. Whites only, colored only. We're sitting at a colored water fountain. All four pictures, we're sitting at colored only transportation. These don't look like, if you ask me, straight Africans. They look like us. This is us. So why would the Racial Integrity Act, this is the question that you need to answer later on when I ask you again. I'm giving you time to prepare for it. Why was, during the Racial Integrity Act, why did they label Indians colored people, and this is the colored people that they're talking about? They didn't label Africans that. I go on to say, do not be confused. Our ancestors went through hell to be who they are. generations later, we decided to forget who they were and claim an attachment to who we are not. Never forget what our ancestors fought for, their home. Cosmic Chris 9 quotes directly from me, because we cannot keep attaching ourselves to being someone we're not. We're not Africans. We're not from over there. Our ancestors fought for our home, and people like Genesis and people like Unc and Cedric and whoever wants to detach us from what our great ancestors fought for, what our great-great-grandmothers and great-great-grandfathers fought for. Out of Africa theory is only a theory because Darwinism is not based on fact or demonstration. From the University of Arkansas, distinguished professor Willard B. Gatewood Jr. I got this, like I said, I've been talking, I started my first PowerPoint when I talked to Unc, and I reused it. Unc will always tell you that the out of Africa theory is not no more a theory, it's a fact, because they've been tried and tested. That's the only way for a theory to become a fact. They have to test it through numerous tests and come to a conclusion that it's not just a theory, it's a fact. The University of Arkansas professor Willard B. Gatewood Jr. tells us Darwinism is not based on fact or demonstration. Demonstration would be the test that you need to run to prove that a theory is no longer a theory. It's still called the out of Africa theory for a reason, because it's not based in fact or testing, rapid and repeated testing. This comes from Columbus State Education.com, a college. If you believe the racist Charles Darwin out of Africa theory, then you are supporting your own demise. Darwin portrayed indigenous people of the Americas and Australia as less than Europeans in capacity and behavior. People of the African continent were consistently referred to as cognitively deplorable, less capable, and of a less rank than other races. These assertions are confounding because in Descent, Darwin, which is a book that he wrote, Darwin offered refutation of natural selection as the process differentiation in races, noting that traits used to characterize them appeared non-functional relative to capacity for success. As a scientist, this should have given him pause. Yet, he still basically asserted evolutionary differences between races. He went beyond simple racial rankings, offering justification of empire and colonialism and genocide through survival of the fittest. That comes from science.org. Although Darwin anticipated some modern ideas of human evolution, he shared the prejudice of his own time and was convinced that Europeans were superior to other races, and that modern industrial civilizations is the highest expression of social evolution. His ideas were taken up by some social evolutionists who argued that here, as in the biological realm, processes will only result if individuals or races were left to struggle among themselves to determine which was fit enough to survive. That's the survival of the fittest again. Rutledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy. You didn't know Rutledge is a college. If you believe the racist Charles Darwin out of Africa theory, then you're supporting your own demise. I'm going to burn this in your head, because people like Genesis just does not understand that they are working against their self when they preach the out of Africa theory. Although best known for his On the Origin of Species, Darwin does not address human evolution and race until 1871 book, The Descendant of Man, in which Darwin applies his theories of natural selection to humans and introduced the idea of sexual selection. Here, his white supremacist is revealed. Over the course of the book, Darwin described Australians, Mongoloids, Africans, Indians, and South Americans, Polynesians, and even Eskimos as savages. It became clear that he considered every population that is not white and European to be savage. The word savage is disdainful, and Darwin consistently elevates white Europeans above the savage. Darwin explains that the highest race and the lowest savage differ in moral disposition, in intellect, and the idea that white people are more intelligent and moral persists throughout. At one point, Darwin says that savages have low morality, insufficient powers of reasoning, and weak power of self-command. Darwin's specific consideration of intelligent capacities is especially alarming. This is the same guy who told you that we all descend from Africa. Celebrations have portrayed Darwin as a kindly old gentleman pottering around an English house and garden. What that misses is the way his ideas were abused in the 20th century and the way in which Darwin was wrong about certain key issues. He asserted the different races of mankind had traveled different distances along the evolutionary path. White Caucasians were at the top of the racial hierarchy, while black and brown people ranked below. Was a widespread prejudice in British society at the time, but he presented racial hierarchy as a matter of science. He also held that the poor were genetically second rate, which inspired genetics, which came from his cousin, Time magazine. To burn it in your head, the widespread prejudice in British society at the time, but he presented racial hierarchy as if it were science. The science is the out of Africa theory. We all know that they say white people came from black people, everybody came from Africa, and they're just like the most up to date. They traveled to Europe and they lost their melanin and became white. And now all of a sudden, once they became white, they're the most updated. They're over, what do they say we're over? They're over Mongoloids, Australians, Africans, Indians, South America, Polynesians, and even Eskimos, all because they came out of Africa and spent time in the mountains away from sun. Come on, man. Proof humans evolved in other places than just Africa. This goes back to the Neanderthal. She said she don't even know why I brought up the Neanderthal. That's why, because you thought I was going to come a certain type of way when I'm going to hit you with different sciences and cross-reference them. That's that's my methodology. I don't just repeat and regurgitate what I see. I take different sources, different fields of study, and cross-reference them. People of European and African ancestry were not or have got more and Neanderthal DNA in their genomes than previously thought. This is the finding of a study that identifies for the first time the Neanderthal genes present in modern day people of African ancestry, and indicates that this ghost DNA spreads through Africa via migrations of modern humans back from Europe. What's surprising about our results is the magnitude of the Neanderthal signal that we all see in all the African populations we've looked at. There's more Neanderthal ancestry in Africa than we thought, says Jacob Akay at Princeton University, who led this study. Neanderthals arose about 430,000 years ago, living in Europe and Central Asia until their demise some 40,000 years ago. Thanks to genetic studies, we know that modern humans interbred with Neanderthals after they left Africa, leaving traces in each other's DNA advertisement. New scientists. Like I said earlier, Neanderthals were never in Africa, ever. We didn't meet them. Africa. So how did a whole nother species of human populate the globe if they didn't come out of Africa? I showed you how through normal distribution. Thank you.
Time. I didn't warn you. Time. That's your 15 minutes.
We stopped speaking.
Smoke. This environment is the toughest, so bring your
tunnel vision. So even I didn't get to hear that last part of what he said. The question I have is that with everything that was said, where is the language? All right. So a major ancestral population should leave a language trail. If we are, he's talking about that it's a racist thing to say that we're from Africa. Okay, we're from America. Where is the language? Any other colonized culture, even those in Africa, you say that we're separate from Africans. Even the Native Americans have a language trail. Where is our language trail? The names, other than Jaquisha and Shaquita, what are our real names and what language do they come from? Okay. All right. The word list, inscriptions, place names, descendant communities, reconstruction, influence. if African Americans are from America and not from Africa, what was our language and why did we stop speaking it? Are we to think that our conquerors or the white people are so powerful that they was able to strip our everything from us, including our language, and every other colonized country actually still speaks their language, including Africa that you say that we're not from? But they were colonized. They still speak the language. Even the Native Americans that they say that these are people are from, that are from the Bering Strait, right? The smallpox and approximately 175 Native American languages still spoken in the United States today, with well over 1,000 surviving across the broader indigenous languages of the Americas, even in South America, different, parts of the Caribbean. Those native cultures still have a form of language. What is our language? And don't tell me it's Tutnese, because Tutnese is part English. Okay, it's like broken English. But then we talk about if even the Aborigines, they still have some semblance of language. They have some semblance. Okay, now we can say it's AAVE, right? Well, that's not a true language form. That's not something that we would do as indigenous people prior to colonialism. So we would have some semblance of a cultural reference where we'd be able to speak to each other and be able to talk in our own language. Okay, so like I said, approximately 175 Native American languages still spoken in the United States today, with well over 1,000 surviving across the board. All right, let's get into it. No responsible argument should claim every conquered language survives indefinitely, but surviving indigenous histories often leave identifiable names, documentation, teaching materials, speakers, structures, and traces. And this is actually a quote, it's probably really small, but it's Comanche, Namai, based on Smithsonian NMAI, on Comanche. His quote is, "The tribe has created languages and cultural preservation programs that have produced numerous language instructional materials." So they, at least the Caucasian, whatever the Asian Native Americans, if we are like the Black ones, have a language. Where is ours? Okay, so let's go a little bit further. Let's go into it. All right, so let's go get past the language, right? So let's get into the genome of it all, right? Because he talked about genome, he talked about all this other stuff when it comes down to the Neanderthal and this, that, the other. So let me get into my genome. Let me pop my genome collar. All right. So so a lot of time people say, well, the DNA is lying. It's fake. It's a white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? Customer labels can change inherited chromosomes, patterns, shared segments, and ancient DNA can be analyzed independently. Okay. So your genome, welcome Sanger Institute, CC 40 Wikimedia Commons. That's where that quote comes from. All right, so let's get into it. You gotta excuse me because I don't. All right, so admixture is a record of descent. Okay, so if I look at my DNA, you're gonna see some African, you're gonna see a European, and then you're gonna see 1% indigenous, right? Now he's going to say that's racism, okay? But a distinct American combination with identifiable ancestral segments exists when you actually look at the DNA evidence, okay? So let's get into it, right? Each stress, scientists do not need the whole American genome in Africa in order to connect African Americans to Africa. Each stretch can be assigned a likely ancestral origin using reference panels and statistical models. African-derived stretches remain detectable after generations of mixing. All right, individual genomes carry genetic material from multiple ancestral lineages. All right, so that's O'Connell et al. Communications Biology 4. That's 1269 as of 2023. Figure 3. All right, so if you want to go look that up, that's O'Connell et al. All right, I just got lost. Hold on, where was I? Okay, let's get into the next one. Large study. African ancestry is the majority in when it comes to African American the actual genome of African American when they actually do the ancestry, the so-called the DNA. You know, but this is not just from 23andMe. These are studied ancestries of 5,269 self-described African Americans, and that was based on a study called Bryan et al. Hum table 1. But you can see it at the bottom. I'll make those things available at the end because I think I have a whole page of those actual sources. All right. So the Baharian study, actually independent study, actually broke it down to 82.1% of African Americans have 82.1% African, 16.7%, and 1% American indigenous DNA. Estimated locations of ancestors before transatlantic migration. All right, an estimated 82.1 of ancestors of African Americans lived in Africa prior to the advent of the transatlantic travel. And that's according to the Baharian et al. Abstract, if you guys want to check that out. All right, Africans derived segments point back to Africa. It either points back to Atlantic African, 66.8%, and this is according to the O'Connell et al. Communications Biology. Sub-Saharan African ancestry was mainly Atlantic African, 66.8%, and that's according to O'Connell. And if you want me to bring up that study, I could bring that up as well before I conclude. All right. Actually, I will bring it up. So this study actually, when it was broken down, researchers identified shared DNA segments inherited from common ancestors. The pattern broadly corresponds to documented African embarkation regions. All right, this investigation establishes genetic links between regions of the American and numerous populations from across Africa. And that's Micheletti et al. Abstract. That's from the Micheletti, Micheletti et al. And that was out of from 2020. That's in figures 2 through 3. All right, and that's that information, right? I kind of got a little bit thrown off by that, the computer messing up. So the evidence is beyond just consumer DNA. People always think about, when they talk about ancestry, they think only about 23andMe. But there are independent and there are more diverse studies than just 23andMe. Okay, what the other information that people look at when it comes down to it is a haplogroups traces one line, not the whole family tree, right? So you have the maternal line, the MT DNA, the mitochondrial DNA, and then you have one pattern line of the Y DNA. All right. So autosomal DNA samples ancestry across many ancestral lines. A European Y chromosome, for example, does not imply a mostly European genome. And that's according to Zaharia, 2009. It discusses genome-wide admixture and contrasts ancestry components, standard distinction, unparental versus autosomal markers. Okay, so that is that study. I'm like doing 2 different PowerPoints at the same time. So you gotta excuse me. All right. So independent evidence does not depend on company ethnicity estimates. Okay. So consumer report, a company's estimate and regional labels, useful support, not the foundation, right? Independent source, research cohorts, whole genomes, local ancestry, and ancient DNA. All right. So different samples and methods converge on African descent. So they're not just using 23andMe and basic like DNA. They're actually using, other methods to get that information. All right. So even if you reject everything, the independent evidence still exists that we have a connection to Africa as far as our being descended from. All right. Slave era remains can be traced to Africa without a family story. All right. So Saint Martin, 3 enslaved people buried in the 17th century. Researchers recovered genome-wide data directly from their remains. We obtained genome-wide data from 17th century remains of 3 enslaved individuals. The 3 individuals showed genetic affinities to different regions of sub-Saharan Africa. Physical remains, genome-wide DNA, African reference population, and independently testable connections. This is from Baharian et al. And that's, that's that information from there. So, all right. So when we talk about this, is independent biomedical cohorts reproduce African ancestry signal. So you have the Health ABC that is able to show that there's an African ancestry signal. You have Jackson Heart Study. You have the Maywood Study. All of those show ancestry signal. And there was 3,726 participants. So if you're saying that this is racism, like what is the racism? The saying that we come from Africa, like in Africa has the majority of Black people on the continent. It's ridiculous to say, oh, that's racism to say that we come from a continent that's primarily Black. Like, that's crazy. You're going with a racist Darwinism about a continent that's 100% Black, pretty much, unless if it wasn't colonized, it would be Black. An estimated 82.1% of our ancestors to African American lives in Africa. 16.75% Europe, and 1.2% Native American. What you would consider like that, kind of Mongolian, native thing, Now, somehow that's tied to racism in some weird way. I'm trying to understand, like, how can we be racist and we're talking about the actual continent that has the majority, So anyway, of Black people. Convergence, not one company, is the proof, okay? There's research cohorts, whole genome sequencing, local ancestry, MTD, mitochondrial DNA, Y-DNA, historical ancient DNA. If 23andMe disappeared tomorrow, how would that invalidate the Jackson Heart Study? Which pre-Columbian ancient DNA population shows stronger continuity with African Americans than the African signal does? Okay, if you wish, please tell me, So let's get into it. What they found out, okay, is that there is a mother-to-child transfer. Mothers pass their mitochondrial DNA to both sons and daughters, but only daughters pass it on to their own children. So the lineage extension happens over a generation. If a family has only sons or no children, that specific maternal line stops. Eventually, random chance leaves only one single female ancestor whose mitochondrial line reaches almost everyone that's alive today, according to the study. Human mitochondrial DNA lineage is traced to a common maternal ancestor who probably lived in Africa roughly 100 to 200,000 years ago. So at the end of the day,
1 minute.
Africans, amongst all other human beings, descend from Africa, period. And that's based on the mitochondria, the female mitochondrial DNA. So even if we were able to say that, hey, that's racist, like we still get back to Africa. Like why? If from a DNA standpoint, mitochondrially. And so, and that's my time. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Just 30 seconds off the 15-minute mark. Thank you, Cosmic, Chris, and Genesis. You have completed your 3 rounds. Now we're going into the question and answer round. I wasn't as clear as I should have been when I explained that you each get to ask each other questions. Cosmic, you will start off and you will ask Genesis 3 questions consecutively, giving her an opportunity to answer each question, giving her an opportunity to answer with 1 minute. So she has up to a minute to answer, and then you can rebut her answer with 1 minute. So you put the initial question out, both of you, when it's your time, and then your opponent answers your question up to a minute, and then you can rebut for a minute and then move on to your second and third question consecutively. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, so we can go right into it, starting with Cosmic. And remember, when you ask the question, do not interrupt your opponent when they're answering. All right, you can start whenever you're ready, Cosmic.
All right. From what I showed you, would you agree that black people have Indian in their, like you said, Indian in their blood? Would you agree that black people, us, have Indian in our blood, hearing and seeing from what I showed you through the Racial Integrity Act and the photos I showed you that the Indians were classified as colored and the images of who the colored people was? That's question number one.
Okay,
Question number-
I'm
First,
sorry.
she has a 1 minute to answer, and then you can come back after she's done and you can rebut it for a minute. Yes. Okay, go ahead, Genesis, uninterrupted.
Okay, so colored is a legal category. It is not an ethnicity. Colored was used to not only just almost like in South Africa, you have the coloreds in South Africa that consider themselves colored, and those people are an admixture of people. It's the same thing that you had in America at some point. So you had during apartheid, you had the colored class. Well, in America, we had a similar thing. So basically, they put people based on racial hierarchy into two categories. You had white and you had colored, and everybody that wasn't white was colored. Not just Native Americans, or not just if you were not white, you were colored. Everyone not legally classified as white was considered colored.
All right, thank you, Genesis. Cosmic, you have a minute to rebut that, and then go on into your second question.
There were mad immigrants here at that time, and Chinese people or Dravidians, Arabs, they were not considered colored people at all. That it was strictly to the blacks and the Native Americans, because the Native Americans were black. They resembled the same as Africans, so they classified us as the same. When they touched down, because it said when the European settlers came, and we all know they all first started in Virginia. And when they came here, they seen black people. They seen Indians, but they were black people. So they made sure to cut. They said, even in the Racial Integrity Act that I showed, it said that blacks were trying to pass off as white. So they made sure to set a hierarchy and a classification system that Indians were labeled as colored and whites were labeled as white. Can I move on to my second question?
Yes, sir. You have your second question, and then she has a minute to rebut it, to answer it.
If I am correct, we can say what if, this is possibility. If I'm right and you're wrong, right? Couldn't it be that we share certain DNA with Africans? Because like I said earlier, we come from the same source. Is it possible that we all come from the same source, but
hold on, let me just say this, all right? In American history, the term colored or person of color primarily referred to Black Americans or of African descent, enslaved individuals, freedmen, and people of mixed racial heritage. That's who was colored. Who was colored in America? In American history, the term colored, okay, or person of color primarily referred to Black American of African descent, enslaved individuals, freedmen, and people of mixed racial heritage. And that was from late 18th century through the mid 20th century, according to Wikipedia. All right. Before the Civil War, terms like free person of color describe free Black people or people of mixed ancestry who were not enslaved during the 19th and early 20th centuries. Southern state laws strictly defined who was colored based on how many generations or fractions of African ancestry. African ancestry, by the way, because we said, did we descend from Africa, right? a person had, ranging from any known ancestor or specific generation limits. So I don't know what the hell he is talking about, but that was who was colored. Let's go.
We all wound up in different locations. Ergo, like the source being the sun, the Big Bang, stardust that's found in all of our bodies. Could it be that we are not brothers and sisters with Africans, but could it be that we're cousins? As if the sun or whatever the original source is our grandparents. And we're all related to that grandparent source, but we're not from the same place as them. Like our cousins, like regular cousins. Could it be like that?
Absolutely.
Now, Genesis, you have 1 minute. Your time starts. I want to get you your full minute. Go.
And I'm going to say absolutely. And guess who that source is? It's called the mitochondrial Eve, and she comes out of Africa, Central Africa. And that mitochondrial Eve, actually, everybody that started from that mitochondrial Eve actually went into other parts. So you have Europeans, you have the Asians, then you also have the, they populated Africa. And if you actually do the research, you'll find out that everybody has that Eve, that gene, that DNA that connected to that mitochondrial Eve. And that's actually a scientifically proven. And this mitochondrial Eve lived about 200,000 years ago, and it's traceable through our DNA, our genome, mitochondria.
All right. Okay. She's good. All right. You have a minute to rebut her answer and go into your third and final question, Cosmic.
Okay. So she even just admitted what I was saying earlier, that the out of Africa theory is racist because they say that white people are the most updated humans. She just admitted that even white people have that mitochondrial Eve gene, and they got it from us because it all traced back to Africa and everyone came out of Africa. You got to listen very carefully. So she just acknowledged that I was correct by saying that we all came out of Africa and white people are the most updated versions of us because they even contain that mitochondrial Eve gene, which is completely false. We're not the same. But I'll let that go because she already proved my point for me. And my third and final question would be, I showed you that the Neanderthal was a species of a humanoid creature, person, whatever you want to call it. And they have no ties to Africa.
What the hell does that have to do with any goddamn thing? Neanderthal existed way before anything that we're talking about here. What the fuck is he talking about, bro? I'm talking about the mitochondrial Eve. This is the mitochondrial Eve, how she from Africa dispersed, right? All the people that are connected to her and where they are located. For some reason, he is trying to talk about the Neanderthal. The Neanderthal is extinct, bro. What is he talking about? The Neanderthal's extinct, sir.
Do not originate in Africa. You said you missed my the end of my PowerPoint. This was what my end of my PowerPoint was. That the Neanderthals have no ties to Africa. We only have their DNA because the Homo sapiens walked out of Africa and decided to mate and mix with the Neanderthals. Are you asking a question? Yes. I'm getting yes.
Are the freaking Neanderthals Native Americans? Like, what is he saying? Why is he bringing up Neanderthals so much? What is he talking about? Modern man are not Neanderthals. They might have a little bit of it in them, but the modern man, us people with how we look, are not fucking Neanderthals. So why in the hell is he talking about Neanderthals?
So the question would be, do you agree that
I don't agree.
species of
Anything you're
humans
saying.
or a species can be found outside of Africa that never originated, that does not descend from Africa, aka like the Neanderthal.
Humanoid.
Whatever you want to call it.
I would say they're humanoid. I think that Africans are the only true humans. I don't believe that those Neanderthals are considered humanoid. They're not considered 100% human. Now that's debatable. Everybody gonna debate me on that, but I'm gonna say that based on science, they are considered humanoid. They're human, then oid, because they're not all the way. Are actually human. I think that they are humanoid. So I wouldn't consider the Denisovans or any other creature that's coming out of like Europe or Asia or any of those things to be 100% human being. So that would be my answer.
So can I just to be clear, so I'm not confused, you are saying that there is humanoids of species that did not originate in Africa. So it's possible for species to not be originating in Africa or to descend from Africa.
Yes, but Africans are the only true humans, not humanoid.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, that was your third and final question. Now we're going to move over to DJ Genesis. DJ Genesis, you have 3 questions, just like he did with you. You can ask your question. He will have a minute to answer, and then you will come back and have a minute to rebut and move on consecutively through your questions. When you're ready, when you're ready, ask your question.
All right. So I'm going to ask the same question I asked at the end. If African Americans are from America and not from Africa, what was our language and why did we stop speaking it? And why do other indigenous and Aboriginal people still have their language? And what happened to ours? And why don't we have a language? Simple. An original language.
Got you. Simple. We did not preserve our language. Simple. That everyone knows over generations, things changed. Once our ancestors who spoke the original language that we had babies, and the next ones had babies, and the next ones had babies, they all were taught and brought and learned the English language.
Bullshit. Because in Africa, people had babies, the next one had babies, the next one had babies. They still know their original tribal languages. A lot of them are polyglots. Even when you go into Spanish and like Spanish speaking places, they can speak English and Spanish. Why don't we actually have a language that we can like go back to? If we were some people that was just like this, why can't we speak our language? What's our language?
We did not, for generation and generation after generation, teach our children our original language. That's our fault. We didn't get stripped of or lose or get our language taken away. We chose to teach our babies after generation a different language, and that became our norm. And a second part answer to that question is Ebonics. Even the word yo is a Native American word. No one uses the word yo or
he didn't say Ebonics, bro. Ebonics is English. Broken English. It's not a language.
Ebonics like we do. Even white people acknowledge that that's what we do. We use Ebonics. We talking in Ebonics.
Okay, Genesis, your rebuttal. You have 1 minute. You're muted, Genesis.
So again, even though we talk about language, we still go back to English post-colonialism language. So we can't even go into. We only said yo, and what I mean, it doesn't make any sense that a whole entire culture of people that are in the millions wouldn't have any remnants of their own, like even a few words of their own language. It just doesn't. It's ridiculous to me, and I would just say that it's just complete pure nonsense to really think that when you have Aboriginal people that came out of Australia and they still maintain their language, you have Indians that not Indians, you have Asians that came across the Bering Strait and still maintain their language. it doesn't make any sense what you're saying. So, does admixture erase ancestry or record it?
It dilutes it. It dilutes ancestry because now you're not like, that's why white people even tried the Racial Integrity Act, because they said with the one drop rule, it dilutes it. You're no longer a full-blown this or that. You are now what they call a mulatto, or you're mixed. You're mixed with certain things. So if you had 100% African DNA and then you had a mixed baby, now the baby has 50% African, 50% white. If you had a mulatto baby with a white person, that's why, because it dilutes the DNA.
Okay,
All right.
so the question was, does it erase our ancestry or record it? And if you actually do the research, you'll find out that they're still able to connect us back to Africa. So if it diluted it, we would not even be able to connect ourselves back to Africa. So it actually does still record it. Just because we have a admixture, that just means that we're able to point that where that admixture came from, and then be able to say, okay, well, we at one point we were African, and then at some point in the genome we mixed with white, and then somewhere later on it was some Indian mixed in there. So actually the real, it records it. It actually gives you a pretty it gives you an outline of where that admixture might have came in based on percentages. How do you explain African matching chromosome segments?
With us, like how we have matched it. Okay, I got to try to explain earlier. They're our cousins. They're not our brothers and sisters. We come from the same grandparent source. The thing is, through natural distribution, and we populated the whole planet, not just Africa. We are made up of the same things as Africans. They're our cousins. We weren't born where they were born. We were born and originated elsewhere on the planet.
That still leaves me more questions. I mean, so you're saying that we were cousins, and I just explained about the mitochondria, and I believe that the mitochondrial mother, the actual Eve mother, is the connection. That entire thing is the connection, and that is the reason why. But you're trying to make it like that the Europeans, and that makes the Europeans more superior to us. Well, I didn't say that. I just said that we have the same, we descend from, right? And the whole thing of this debate was, do we descend from America or do we descend from Africa? I think that I proved my point by showing the mitochondrial Eve, and then showing that admixture and the actual how that Eve then moved to through Asia and into Europe and this that the other. I don't think that you've quite proven to me how the same thing happened out of America. And I'll just land my plane right there.
All right, thank you. That's the end of our question and answer round for our debaters. Now we are going to move into closing for both of them. Cosmic, we'll give you your 5 minutes to close.
What do y'all think? Do you think that Cosmic proved that we came out of America? Or do you just think that he just was all over the place talking about Neanderthals, and he went all over like the from here to the sun and didn't prove a goddamn thing? I think I proved that we came from Africa. He did not prove that we came from there, unless he was able to show a mitochondrial Eve that came out of America. There's nothing else to be said. I think that I like fucking nailing the coffin when I said that. Boom, done. I waited to the very end to reveal that. I put that slide at the very end, nailing the coffin. Shut the fuck up. What are you talking about, bro? He talking about like Neanderthals and everything else, except for the fact that like where is the ape-like figure that came out of America that we all descended from? Neanderthalish type figure, right? Let's go.
Close, and your time begins when you start speaking. I won't come in and say you have 1 minute left. I'll just, after the 5, let you know your time's done. So
Thank you so much, Cosmic. Like I said, when you start speaking, your time begins.
All right. I do believe that I've proven my point. She wanted to bring up mitochondria DNA. That's fine. You could take her theory or you could take mine, that mitochondrial DNA come from a grandparent source and it was naturally distributed throughout the whole planet. We have the same origin. I've shown and proved that we have the same origin as plants and animals because we are fundamentally one and the same. So there's evidence out here that shows you that that mitochondrial Eve gene could be passed through the whole freaking planet, the whole globe, just how our cousins would be. If we all got our mitochondrial Eve gene from our actual grandmother, and she had her kids, she had 7 kids, and those 7 kids had their different kids, they all would still contain that mitochondrial Eve gene, but they're all in different lineages. And that's what it is. That's just on the minute scale. On a major, broader scale, are whoever the one common true ancestor is, whether it's the sun, whether it's the stardust or whatever, that passed us our genes and that landed everywhere all over the globe due to the natural distribution. She never showed a mathematical formula for the distribution. She just admitted that she believes the mitochondrial Eve gene came out of Africa, and that's when they traveled out of Africa and populated the rest of the world. That would be her distribution, which is a false distribution, because if we're fundamentally one and the same with nature and animals, and they were naturally distributed all over the globe, it cannot be the same for us. It has to be that we follow the same origin path as animals and plant life, aka nature. So I applaud Genesis for taking this debate with me. I think I've proven my points more than some. I think she needs to leave the racist ideology alone, because no matter what, the person who created the Out of Africa theory believed what he believed, and he said what he said, all to justify white people being smarter than the rest of the world. So thank you for, I respect you, sis. I respect your knowledge, your information. I think this was a great debate. I applaud you. I'll look forward to anybody else who want to do any more debates. I'm here to, as you've seen the image, I don't know what to call it, basically the poster or the advertisement for this debate. We're truth seekers and researchers. So I'm here to seek the truth. I'm always down to hear a new truth. I'm here to debate anybody that want to step up and get it. But as far as I'm concerned, I feel as though I won this debate. I'm 3-0 right now. I've shown and proved that we are a native species and that we populated this whole earth due to natural distribution, which is not a theory. It's a scientific law. So unless you guys want to come tackle a scientific law, I suggest you guys stay out my path, because I'm here to wreck everybody. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Cosmic, very much. Genesis, thank you, Cosmic. And Genesis, you're closing. Your 5 minutes begins when you start speaking.
All right. So, tonight's question is simple. Do Africans descend from Africa or do they descend from America? After examining the genetic, historical, genealogical, linguistic, and cultural evidence, the answer is unequivocally yes. We come from Africa. That does not mean African Americans have no indigenous American ancestry. Some absolutely do. It does not mean every family has the same ancestry. We do not. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean African Americans are culturally identified to Africans living on the continent today. It means that African Americans are a distinct ethnic population formed here in America whose ancestry is predominantly African. And that's all I'm trying to just say, is that, yes, we are predominantly African. Being formed in America does not cancel African descent. People can develop a new identity in one place while descending from people who came from somewhere else. Jamaican culture developed in Jamaica, but that does not erase the African ancestry of most Jamaicans. African American identity developed in America, but that does not erase African people from whom most African Americans descend. People are saying it's racist to believe that we came out of Africa. That sounds asinine. Why would you think that it's racist to come out of the most black place in the world? I didn't say we came from Europe. I said we came from, and half of us have that admixture. going on. We got a little bit of Caucasoid. We got a little bit of Neanderthal up in our blood. I didn't say we came. I believe saying that we come from America with all that admixture going on is really the thing that's going to be some racist stuff. I don't think he proved his argument. I think that he was all over the place talking about the flowers and stuff and how something could come from a certain continent and still be from another thing. But I'm talking about mitochondrial Eve. Okay, so if we did come from America, where was the actual Eve? Where's the bones? Where's the information? Where's the genetic DNA from? Show me that. Genetic evidence is overwhelming. Genome-wide studies do not examine one maternal line or one paternal line. They examine hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of locations across the entire genome. Across multiple independent studies and data sets, African Americans consistently show predominantly African ancestry. And I can show you today, looking on my 23andMe, it says even with me being mixed with the Neanderthal, it say 39% African. And then the other is like still some more African. You know what I'm saying? But other parts of Africa, you know, a little bit of Asian in there, you know, a little bit of Indonesian. That's just about 1%. But if we, but we had mixed with the Native Americans, and we still have like that weird percentage going on. But we say, well, we don't. That's all racism. That whole DNA. But they have other studies. People are not. Everything is not just this racist thing. Oh, the color. They had the colored fountains, and that's not no color is not an ethnicity. Black is not an ethnicity either. You know, if black ain't an ethnicity, neither is colored. So what the heck are we talking about? The percentages vary from person to person, but overall conclusion does not. The largest ancestral component of the African American population traces to Africa. If African Americans were primarily indigenous Americans who had simply been relabeled, their genome should predominantly cluster with indigenous populations. They do not. Their African genetic ancestry is not based on skin color, facial appearances, oral tradition, or grandmother saying somebody was Cherokee. It is identified through inherited DNA segments, allele frequencies, haplogroups, population comparisons, and statistic models that consistently point back to African populations. And let us be clear, a Gaussian distribution is merely a statistical tool. A bell curve cannot declare that African Americans originated in America. That's just a statistical measure. The documentary records reaches the same conclusion. Shipping records, port records, plantation records, advertisement, bill of sales, court document, all kind of stuff that say that we came over here from Africa. So all that stuff is just racism. It doesn't mean it's let's put our tinfoil hats on, you guys. And it's all a conspiracy. It's a comparison. It's a comparison. The documentary record, it says the same. It's a conclusion. You know what I'm saying? Could every individual voyage and every enslaved person be documented? Of course not. Incomplete records are expected when studying slavery, but missing records do not erase the enormous body of records that survived. Okay. How much more time do I have?
13 seconds.
Oh, okay. So the development of African American language and culture under slavery and segregation points to population of African descended transformed in America. We don't have our original language. We don't have our original culture. All those things are slipped from us through slavery. Point blank, period. Let's stop imagining a bunch of bullshit.
Thank you very much, Genesis. And we've now concluded the debate between Cosmic Chris and DJ Genesis. Thank you so much. We have a lot of HOK members in the back, so I'm going to let them on right now. Remember, everybody, come in and please be respectful, as I know you will. And let us know who you think won. I'll put you on stage in order where I thought I saw God Energy and Issa Queen. Let me see.
I played that to that point. Thank you guys for watching up to this point. Shouts out. Thank you for watching up to this point. If you want to watch the second half where you had people in the audience questioning, and they had more questions for him than they had for me. I think I proved my point, and that was it. I mean, but his standpoint was very much questioned, If you want to see the rest, please go on to Sonnetter TV. Go ahead and watch the rest of the debate. Much love, guys. Thank you for watching so far. Shouts out, guys. Peace.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah. See if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place.